Yeah, why Spring creates singleton bean? We will discuss in this video. Very important Spring Boot interview question and understand Spring Bean internal working. Why Spring you reuses same object? So simple singleton bean example. Public class user service at the service annotation is there. So what it will do Spring creates only one user service object because it's by default it's a singleton scope. We didn't mention any scope here. As default it's a singleton scope, so Spring creates only one user service object. So whenever you do user service with auto void annotation, so we need that user service object. So the Spring inject the same singleton object, so no new object per request is created. Singleton verification example. How do you know that it's whether a Spring is created singleton bean or not? You can use this like contest.get bean user service plus. Whenever you require the user service bean, it will give the same bean. You cross check with s1 equal to s2, so it should get either true because all these objects will point to the same singleton bean. So how Spring create beans? So in general, so when it component scanning is happened, after that it will identify, it will bean object creation will be happen, right? It will have to the in the part of the component scanning, whichever the classes have the annotation with @, service or @repository, component. So for those beans, right, it will create object, and after that it will store the object in the application context and reuse the same object everywhere. Whenever requested for the object, it will give the same object. It will reuse the same object everywhere. It won't create a new object whenever you requested for that object. So why singleton by default? Because memory optimization, better performance, and fast dependency injection avoid repeated object creation. So very important thread safety question. So as it is a singleton bean, you have to think about the thread safety, right? So singleton bean shared by many requests. So avoid mutable instance variables. What is instance variables? You already know that in the class, a variable declared within the class and outside the method is called, we know it's a instance variable. So try to avoid the storing data inside the instance variables, because you're try to making this a stateful, and this is a singleton. So this singleton bean is shared across multiple requests. So there is a possibility of overriding of this data. Parallelly, two requests will override the data of this instance variable. So instead of that, you try to store the data inside the variables and keep beans stateless. So bad singleton example is, this is the instance variable, inside the user service where request data is storing inside this variable at the instance variable. So it is a bad singleton example as we discussed. So you this can create the thread safety issues, right? So it's a singleton bean. Only one bean we are using across multiple requests. So multiple requests try to override the data at parallelly. So there is a chance of overriding the data between the requests. So to make it I2, this is a bad singleton example. Try to avoid storing data inside the instance variables. So what is a good singleton example? You try to store the data inside the variables inside the method, right? So to make the bean user service stateless. Yeah, that's about singleton scope. If you see the prototype scope, we have to mention the scope prototype. Previously we didn't mention this as a singleton because the default scope is that one, but prototype is, if you want prototype scope, then you have to mention explicitly. So new object will be for every get bean call. Whenever you requested for the bean, it will create a new object as part of the prototype bean. So one object per Spring container. It's a singleton object scope means same object reused everywhere, and it improves the memory and performance. Very important Spring internal concept. This one is. I hope you understand the Singleton scope. A bit about the prototype scope. We will discuss further about the scopes in further videos. I hope you understand this concept. Thank you. If you want to more Java interview questions, you try to visit JavaToVictory.com. It has a vast collection of Spring Boot Java Microservice interview questions and internal concepts. Subscribe for more backend interview videos.